I have been randonauting a couple times in the past, but I gave it a rest for a couple of months due to being scared for my safety. Today was the first time I used the new updated app. I did 4 points, and every time I do Randonautica, my 4th point is always the strangest. Every single point had an old man involved. My first point was a 170-meter walk into a bush. I had a gut feeling to not do it, but I waited in my car for a bit. About 5 minutes later, a car pulls up driving slow, looking into the bush trail, gets out, and walks exactly into where I would have been. Just around the exact time I would have been approaching the point too. Very strange vibes. This isn't a dirty road that people go into regularly as well. My last point was too scary. On the way there, I saw 111, and then my music playing through my radio of my car kept stopping and starting. Music sped up and then slowed down. I did end up going to the point, but there was a man who changed his pants, then was standing looking around right next to his car. I freaked out and drove away. I deleted the app and waited a while before going home. What are your thoughts? Because one of the trip was in the bush. When I waited as I decided not to go in as a gut feeling, someone literally pulled up right near that part of the bush. Keep in mind this isn't some popular trail. He parked and walked straight in. If I had walked in, I would have been just arriving at my generated spot at that point. It just seemed very odd. Edit. People in the comments are turning this into something it isn't. Yes, men experience bad situation, but statistically, women are more of a target and deal with things like this more. Stop trying to turn this into some gender debate. I'm just sharing my randonauting experience. Background. My city gets huge numbers of university students who come from other provinces, mainly Ontario, and live in frat houses all around the universities. My dad was a professor, so we lived near them all. The students would go back in the summers, but usually couldn't sublet their rooms, so many of the frat houses were empty over the summer, with the exception of a few students who stayed for the summer or managed to sublet their rooms. I'm from Nova Scotia, and in the summers, rickshaw drivers run around the city offering rides to people. One night when I was about 19, my friends and I were leaving a club at like 3 a.m. We were really drunk and had a long way to go. We started chatting to a rickshaw driver outside of McDonald's where all the drunk people gathered. Turns out he lived like 5 minutes from my house. He offered me and my 2 friends a ride. We said sure. The way home was basically one really long street called Spring Garden Road. It intersects with other major streets that thread throughout the city. He dropped my first friend off at one intersection, and then my second friend maybe 10 minutes later at another intersection. We were all chatting the whole time, but when my friends left, a strange, awkward heaviness settled in the air, and there was no more talking. It was weird. He pulled into the gravel driveway of a huge frat house, and I got out. He stopped in front of me and casually said, "You want to come inside and have sex?" He had blonde hair that fell into his eyes. I couldn't speak. I just shook my head and walked backwards out to the sidewalk. I turned around and started walking. When I looked back, he had moved to the end of the driveway with his hands in his pocket of his shorts watching me. My heart was literally thudding in my ears and adrenaline was spiking all over me. I ran home convinced I'd felt his hands grabbing me the whole way. The next week, my mom called me at my friend's house to tell me to make sure I got a ride home that night and didn't walk. I asked why. Apparently, a girl had been raped at a frat house up the road, and tried to escape, but was dragged back inside. She was found outside on the street, badly beat up, and had apparently been curbed. I don't know if there is any connection between the events, but I don't think I've ever felt that kind of visceral fear before or since. I went to the beach with my little sister, who was 16, and her 2 friends the summer I was 24. I was home from university, and she invited me along. I'm really glad I did in the end. The spot we chose was far from the water, and I laid my towel down a few feet from the girls to give them some privacy. Started dozing off in the sun when I heard a man's voice join the conversation. I sat up on my elbows and watched the scene unfold. The man, a short, reddish-haired, stocky man, wearing cargo shorts and hiking boots and socks, were crouching down in the sand in front of the girls. He didn't realize I was with them or didn't notice me. He started asking them if he could take photos of them. He was a photographer, and he pulled out a shitty digital camera, like the first ever digital camera we all got for Christmas in 2004. I waited to hear what the girls would say, and they agreed to the photos. The man said that he just needed one of them to come with him to his studio just down the road. My sister's friend said, "I'm down for whatever," and got up to go with him. This is when I finally spoke up and told her to sit her ass back down. I asked how old he was. 31. And why he was talking to 16-year-old girls. He started getting panicky and stood up. I proceeded to follow him down the beach, yelling to everyone that this man is trying to get 16-year-old girls to leave with him so he can take photos of them over and over again. He literally ran, and when he reached the wooden walkway to take him back to the parking lot, he gave me a look that scared the fuck out of me. Pure hatred, rage, like an animal. The whole way back to where my sister and her friends were sitting, I had this feeling like an icy hand gripping my spine. That they just avoided something horrible. We all still talk about it till this day. When I was a freshman in college, I went on a trip to a nearby ski resort with the rest of the students in this program I was a part of. I don't like the cold, but there was a water park in another building, so I decided I'd hang out there. In the feat of full-time management, I also had a math test coming up, either the next day or the day after, so I bought my textbook with me to study. I thought if I were going to do calculus, I might as well do it in a nicer, warmer place. This worked for all about 30 minutes. A sound of the fountains and sprinklers made it sound like heavy rain, and it was so warm and humid, and the math was so boring that I ended up falling asleep. Not sure how long I was out for, but when I woke up, there was a kid taking pictures of me. It was one of those yellow single-use cameras, and it was so close to my face, like less than a foot away. He ran away right after I woke up, so I didn't see his face. He looked like some scrawny teenager. There were a couple minutes of me going, "Wait, what?" And by that time, he was long gone. Not sure what the point was in taking those pictures. I looked through my bag and everything was right where I'd left it. So he hadn't taken my pictures and then gotten my name and address. But I have no idea if he kept them, if he developed them, or where they could be right now. It's a weird dinner story I tell today, but it freaked me out in the moment.